All right, shout out to Brett, Michael, and Oscar, aka Mitch, Sandy, and Vinny Malone. This one is dedicated to these three amazing actors, and it's no new thought on the channel. I've been saying it for years that the Malones deserve a spinoff, because of the fact that while they weren't technically one of the main three families, they were the family in the shadows that ran the show. Even though technically you could say the Perry family, aka Tyler Perry, did, but that's speaking subjectively. So, I've done videos talking about prequel ideas. I've done videos talking about how the Malones could fit into the Oval. And I mean, a number of Tyler's other shows. I mean, we're in an age where Tyler Perry is beginning to write spin-offs, you know, like Ruthless being a spin-off of The Oval, Bruh being a spin-off of Sisters. So I don't see how it would be impossible for him to do the same for the haves and the have-nots, especially with the show still being in high demand, considering the, well, ending, if you want to call it that. But even though I honestly feel like I'm in the minority here, because I actually had a fan email me a couple days ago, and if you could just bear with me, I'm going to pull up my inbox here, because it was a very thought-provoking email, because I never thought of it from that perspective. I mean, I've done plenty, and I mean plenty, of videos regarding the finale as a whole, but let me just read this email for you. It actually pulled up for me just now. And the email, just to give you like a quick overview: I enjoy your halves recaps. However, I'm surprised you don't have the same reaction as other YouTubers regarding that Tyler Perry was saying F you to the fans, giving a disservice to them based on the lackluster series finale. And this comes from a couple places, because of the fact that, well, based on how If Loving You Is Wrong ended, was it last year, right? I was like, if you have a high rated show like that in the way it did on the OWN network, then the haves and the have-nots, I wouldn't put it past that show to get the same kind of treatment, where we'll get a finale that doesn't really conclude anything. Either everybody's going to die, or the episode's just going to feel like a regular episode, and then that'll be it. So, when it came to the finale airing, my mom and I, there were only like, I feel like there were two moments where we actually went, that's when Catherine got killed. I mean, I called it, but the way in which she got killed was pretty intense. And then the final scene where Hannah and Jim were fighting. Other than that, the episode felt like it was still, I think the first half of the episode was really good, but it was the back half where it just kind of fell apart, because everybody just had to die before the final moments of the episode. And when it came to the disappointment, I was like, meh. I mean, people were getting on me about, Jeremy, your reviews for the final 8 episodes, where's that energy? Why are you speaking so negatively? And it wasn't me just kind of speaking negatively. It was giving legitimate reasons why I felt the way I felt. And I felt nothing. I mean, those last 8 episodes, we were sitting up there waiting for what was leading up to the finale. It's like, every week it's like, hey, there's only like 3 episodes left. We got to get it moving. Well, why are we spending so much time on Jeffrey, or, you know, repeating the same dialogue over and over again? But when we got to the final episode, here's my thing. I feel like that was one of the best Malone episodes we've gotten in a while. Like, you've heard what I said before, where the Malones, in my opinion, were too damn powerful that they had to be written to be incompetent. Like, literally, the Malones not killing Wyatt when they slit his wrist and everything, or we're going to slit your wrist, let you pass out, and then put you in a car or something like that, and that way you get found. And it's like, that's not a Malone. That doesn't seem like, not to quote Candace per se, because I ain't trying to end up like her, but that's usually not your style. I mean, I get it though. Vinny is not Mama Rose, but I feel like the plot had to write them to be incompetent. I don't want the Malones coming after me for saying that, but I'm telling the truth. Like, you have Vinny telling Sandy that he needs to step up because you need to have a kid because we don't have a lot of heirs to the Malone throne and Mitch doesn't want to be part of the family. I'm like, wait a minute. When did this turn into a numbers game where I thought Malones were almost a infinite number of members to get stuff done? But you're telling me now that the group is in danger of like a Hispanic or a black gang mob family taking over. I'm like, where are these families coming from? But I'm thinking we got some lore here we can dig into. So to see the Malones back to that intimidating force that they were when they were first introduced, I was talking to Mom like, see, that's the Malones that we watched when they first came on in season 1. Like, these are the Malones you should be afraid of. This ain't the quote-unquote happy-go-lucky Sandy and Mitch doing their married couple routine. I will get to that in a second. These were the Malones that, for lack of a better phrase, they got shit done. And that's why I feel like that spinoff should happen. So I have my notebook here. I've jotted down some points that I wanted to discuss in this video, talking about things that the finale left open-ended, things that this continuation of their story could cover. And you could let me know how you feel. Like, some people, I've seen the comments on previous posts and videos where it's like, Tyler can't handle a show like that. Tyler, this is outside of his, I guess you could say range or genre. And I'm like, well, what about when the haves and the have-nots first started? That was something unlike we've ever seen before from Tyler, and it was a hit. Not to mention he's begun to add writers and directors to his projects now. So even if he made this spinoff, it could be given over to someone else. So, I mean, keep in mind, when we say this Malone, when I say this Malone spinoff could possibly happen, it doesn't necessarily have to be Tyler Perry doing everything. Have an open mind. Seriously, if you're talking about Tyler can't handle a project like this, have you seen Ruthless? And I mean, even the new show coming up, All the Queen's Men, that seems to be completely different than what we're used to with Tyler Perry. So, just saying, this Malone spinoff, look, if it's on BET Plus, I know shit's going to get crazy. But let's talk about some of the key points. Number 1, what happened to Mitch? I feel like we all want to know what happened to Mitch after he attacked his Don, Uncle Vinny, in the finale, trying to protect Candace. Vinny got a few shots in after Mitch was held by a couple dudes, and then he was knocked to the floor. Vinny said if you get up, that you're losing your legs. But to have him get up and then attack the Don, something tells me that's going to lead to an even bigger punishment. Now, I feel like there could be a couple things here, because like Vinny said, it's a numbers game. There aren't too many heirs. Sandy could be shamed for not killing Benny himself. That's another point I'll get to soon. So here's what I think. If Mitch is killed, I could see that happening. Seriously, I could see Mitch being killed for what he did. That makes sense to me now. But I feel like with Vinny being Vinny, he would probably call Mama Rose to say, look what your grandson did, this, and this. But I think because of his friends being murdered, the lines that tethered Mitch to, quote-unquote, the good side, not being in the family, will put him in the family. Basically because, Benny's dead, Candace is dead. Well, what do you got? What do you got, Mitch? What do you got? You have no choice. I feel like Mitch could have just been killed because of what he did attacking the Don, or he could redeem himself by finally joining the family. And based off the dialogue, Mitch was one hell of a Malone. There were like 1 or 2 jobs he actually helped with that he got praise for. So, and Mama Rose was begging him to become in the family, but he kept saying no. So basically, Mitch is the kind of person who, if he went into the family, he could definitely be a contender for being the new Don. So I would like to see that journey. So if the show does come back, I'm not saying Mitch won't be punished, because trust and believe, when he finds out what happened to Candace and Benny, that's probably going to be punishment enough. So I think that Mitch should definitely be alive, mainly for the sake of the next point, which is Sandy. A lot of people are giving Sandy flack because it's like, man, that was a bitch move. He had 3 dudes gun Benny down. He didn't do it himself like his uncle said. But to be fair, in the episode Trouble Man, Vinny got on Sandy for being at the bar, but he's like, hey, don't worry, I'm waiting on Sal and some guys. And he's like, fine, you know what, make it bloody. I think the fact that Sandy didn't kill Vinny himself doesn't really matter, because at that point, Vinny was tired of Mitch and his back talk. So he's like, you know what, make it bloody. I don't care. Do what you got to do. So it went from Sandy, take care of it yourself, to Sandy, make it a bloody mess. However, I will say this much. Tyler Perry has been known to write retcons within his shows, so I feel like some of the things that were said and quote-unquote established in the haves and the have-nots could be rewritten in this sequel series. Like, for example, if you watch Ruthless, there was the episode where the highest was literally laughing in Andrew's face when Andrew confessed to murdering William, the boy. And then in like the follow, because it's like, oh, it was a test of your allegiance to the Raku. But then in the following episode, all of a sudden the highest is disappointed in Daikon, and he said he'll deal with Andrew the next morning. He's like, fam, it's like in the last episode you couldn't give a crap, but now all of a sudden it's like you're going to be punished. So I feel like it could be written where in the beginning of this upcoming series, and I say upcoming because I believe it could happen, that Vinny would give Sandy some crap. It's like, okay, you took out the black kid, good, but this time here's an assignment and you will have to do it yourself. I feel like at this point it's going to be a Sandy where you could argue, man, it's just a story of regression where he was like trying to be a badass in the finale, but now he can't really shoot a guy on his own. But it begs the question, if he didn't have the 3 guys behind the house, would Sandy have shot Benny? I mean, it was definitely a personal stake. You embarrassed me in front of my whole family. It's like, you kind of embarrass yourself in front of the whole restaurant. But it's one of those situations where it's like, well, is he truly a Malone yet? I mean, he handled the job, but number one, it was collateral damage. Like, you created a lot of unwanted attention to the family by shooting up his mother's house, and he wasn't even there. It's like you shot first and tried to aim later. It's one of those situations where if Sandy is to continue being in the family, he's going to have to prove himself. And I feel like if Mitch is still alive, you know that Sandy's going to give him some crap. It's like, oh yeah, your black friend's dead and whatnot. But at the same time, Mitch is a far more effective Malone if he actually puts his all into it. So there could be like and I hate to use this term because it certainly isn't a fact, buddy cop dynamic. I mean, even though it felt cheesy at times, the back and forth between Mitch and Sandy were some of my favorite moments in the later seasons with the Malones, because these two would go back and forth. Like, Sandy would talk trash about Mitch's, his truck or car or whatever. But it's like, yeah, what about your bicycle? Hey. And then he even brought up how Sandy's father was like a coward or something like that. So it's like, yo, let's explore this stuff. So I feel like we could actually get some development with Sandy, because I feel like he got the acting chops for it. I've seen Michael in other projects, so I think Sandy and Mitch's dynamic could definitely work off each other well, especially in the midst of a more stoic and antagonizing force within the Malones, when I'm talking about like the other family members that we have seen on screen. So I think Sandy really coming into the, okay, wow, all right, Mitch, I actually do see why you had reservations against joining the family, but once you realize, blood is thick in the water and you really can't escape your what was that one episode from the Haves and Have-Nots, Haunted by a Surname? It's something that you can't escape, because one way or another, what was that saying? It's like, no matter where you go, there you are. And I'm not saying people can't change, but at the end of the day, it's like, man, I know some people lose it when I make these comic book references, but if you like DC Comics, one of the only comics in my later years, if you will, where I was actually able to afford comics that I followed from story 1 all the way to the ending, was Injustice Gods Among Us, which obviously was based on the video games that told the story of Superman going evil and then Batman, fighting him for the sake of good. It was like they both had like heroes and villains on their side and whatnot. They're even making an animated movie soon, but I don't know if it will do the comic justice because it spanned like year 1 through year 5, Ground Zero, Year Zero, Injustice 2. But the story was about the Joker and Harley kidnapping Lois, who was pregnant with Superman's unborn child at the time. They actually did a surgery on her and planted a bomb in Metropolis, and whenever Lois's heart stopped, the bomb would detonate and it would destroy Metropolis. So basically, like, Joker stepped up his game. He actually got Scarecrow toxin and then mixed it in with kryptonite, so it would make Superman hallucinate that Doomsday was attacking, and he actually took Doomsday into outer space to fight him, and it turned out that it was Lois. He thought Lois was Doomsday based on the toxin, and when Lois died, the bomb went off and killed millions in Metropolis, and then from there, Superman killed the Joker, and that's what started the Injustice storyline. So I feel like Lois being the tether to Superman's life on Earth as a quote-unquote human, if you will, being gone, then his unborn child, that was enough to send Superman off the deep end and go evil control. So I feel like with Mitch losing Candace, losing Benny, those were his tethers to being a non-Malone. So with them gone now, he's obviously going to have resentment towards his family. Like, you could argue Mitch could go one of two ways with this storyline. Either he could join the Malones begrudgingly, or he could take another route, which I will mention right now. Let's talk about a video I did about Rihanna being pregnant with Benny's child. Possibly, you know, the fact that Vinny got on Sandy's case about how you had this girl, she got an abortion, we're supposed to keep the bloodline going. I never even liked the idea of you going with this black chick. She's half black. I love how Sandy has those. I feel like Sandy has a lot of ad libs. I feel like he has a lot of ad libs. But in any case, because they're good, they're snappy. I just feel like Rihanna could be like, you know, pregnant, and then Sandy's proud, like, you know, because let's just say he hooked up with her not too long after murdering Benny. Because remember, the same night he got gunned down was the same night he and Rihanna had sex. So imagine him and Rihanna get back together, if you want to even use that word, to have sex. Next thing you know, she's pregnant, and then, you know, Sandy, he's doing good in the Malone family. Vinny's giving him praise, but then the giant middle finger is, oh my God, it's not your kid, it's actually Benny's. So let's talk Rihanna for a moment. I feel like she could be in this series, even if only for a few episodes. Just the fact that she's obviously going to feel guilt about playing a part in Benny's murder, but at the same time, you know, in order to kind of redeem herself to the fans, you know, there could be a lot of things that can get done. Like, you know, Hannah could find out Benny was gunned down in front of his new house, and it's like, wait, why would he have gone to that new house in the middle of the night when he just found out he has a baby right here? And, you know, who sold him the house? You know, like, why did he go? That kind of stuff. I mean, he got a phone call from Rihanna, so, you know, if they're actually competent in this spinoff, they could actually look at the phone like, who was the last person that called? It was her. And then, you know, I feel like Rihanna might try to lie at first, but at the end of the day, with Hannah being the kind of woman she is, and Rihanna, I feel, being a good person at heart, would confess to what happened. And then possibly these two will work together, with Hannah being the person in charge of the Cryer estate with the resources she has. They could probably work together, testify against the Malones to get justice for Benny's murder. And Mitch might be willing to help out with that in order to get justice for his friend and revenge on the family. So I feel like Mitch could go one of two ways now. He could be a story told where he joins the Malones begrudgingly, or he fights against them through another method. You know, like, I feel, if nothing else, Mitch is the kind of guy who would talk with Miss Hannah in order to make amends, because even though I don't think Mitch did a damn thing wrong, he went out of his way to help his friend so many times. So I feel like Rihanna could be begrudgingly with Sandy, or she could work together with Hannah to get revenge on the Malones and testify against them and whatnot, and possibly even have the baby. And then Hannah will be like, I got 2 grandbabies, yay! So I'm sorry, that sounded weird, but let's talk about Vinny for a second. What about him finding out about the demises of Jim and David? Now, based on what we heard during the reunion, these characters are dead. Hannah killed Jim. I guess David died in the bomb. I mean, you could write it where he survived, but let's just assume for the sake of argument that he's dead. So it's like Vinny realizing, you know, damn, those people that I talked about helping the Malone so much they're gone now. Now they have to make new connections within the legal system. And I feel like this would be pretty interesting to at least get Vinny's reaction to their deaths. You know, I'm not going to say like Mama Rose. I feel like Mama Rose would give up more of a reaction to this, but I think Vinny would be pretty interesting. You know, from like one hand washes another. This could be pretty damn cool, because that leads to my next point of, well, the Harringtons and the Cryers are out of the way, you know, no more connections with them. Let's talk about new powerful people to connect themselves with. You know, they're, you know, basically Judge Cryer and Judge Harrington weren't the only people these people knew within the justice system, or the only people that people were afraid. I mean, people in power who were afraid of the Malones and know what they are capable of. So I feel like overall the Malones could link themselves with new characters. In the Oval, there are allegedly 5 families that run the country. They could possibly be one of them from the underground. Even going to Ruthless, you know, Lilo, he worked with a cartel. And again, who's to say the cartel weren't the Malones or one of the Hispanic or black cartels? I'm just saying, the rivers flow deep. The Malones could interact with these other characters. Yes, they were mentioned as a opposing force, unseen force in the movie Medea's Witness Protection, so we could take it to another level. All right. And speaking of the opposing new families, again, new characters. Let's have some of these mob bosses have a meeting, you know, where it's like Vinny and 2 other people. They talk about, hey, there's like a power vacuum going on. We lost 2 of the best ones, you know, Cryer and Harrington. What else can we do? You know, because I feel like even though there are rivaling families, there's almost like a respect amongst each other. So I imagine there are these discussions about territory, resources, and things of that nature. Mama Rose, I could see her returning, even if it's nothing more than like a phone call, or let's say Mitch is brought before her in Florida or something along those lines. I would like to see Mama Rose come back in some capacity. I really would. Even if it's just like a reoccurring or guest star role. So I want Mama Rose to come back. And speaking of the whole like opposing families and whatnot, maybe it's strength in numbers, because let's talk about the Rihanna. I already talked about Rihanna, but what about Charles and his reaction to finding out his love/mother of his unborn child was murdered? You know, I mean, one of the biggest critiques about the finale is the fact that Landon made a point that, you know, hey, we're watching you. But it's like, well, why didn't you do anything when she went to the Malone bar? What about when she got beaten up and delivered to Jim? It's like there are so many things where any minute now, waiting for Secret Service to bust in to save Candace. Where you at? Where you at? So what you doing? Where you at? Apparently they had plans, and yeah, we didn't want them to say that. But I'm just saying that overall, we're in a situation where what if Charles, you know, I feel like Charles would probably, there one or two things could happen. Candace Young being murdered is definitely going to make front page news, especially in the midst of, she was messing around with the president, but I feel like the media could say, well, you know, when she was spotted at the White House, a lot of people came forward with, you know, quote unquote allegations of her being a con artist and everything. So one of those people finally caught up with her. So there's that. But I feel like, you know, Charles would possibly reach out to the mother, because like you lose your grandchild, now you lose your son and your daughter. And I feel like going back to her being in charge of the Cryer estate and possibly Rihanna and or Mitch joining in the fight against the Malones, putting Charles and his resources on the case, I feel like the Malones could possibly either be brought to justice or they go underground on the run. And as a result, Vinny has no choice but to link up with these other mobs like, hey, they're coming after me, so they could possibly come after you next. Because all the deaths that went on from Veronica Harrington to Judge Harrington, you know, Judge Cryer and so on and so forth, they're going to be looking at it, Savannah hard. So all you other families, we need to join together. Like if you watch Black Lightning in the final season, where the police force was going after the Lala and the 100 gang, Lady Eve's group, you know, there was a unholy alliance which turned into a backstab, where it's like Tobias Wells, like, you know, I'm taking down all these gang members and whatnot. So it would be pretty interesting to have these gang members work together in order to escape the wrath of the feds. So I think seeing that could actually be pretty interesting. And going on from there, we have to talk about it. If Vinny gets into a situation like this, going back to what I said about Mama Rose, could Vinny be replaced as the Don? You know, like a lot of, even myself, I said, you know, the way that Mitch is being, you know, disrespected and pushed around by Benny and whatnot, I could see his friends pushing him to being a Malone. It's like, you know, they're based on like Benny's bad decisions, he's making Mitch get into uncomfortable situations with his family. And as a result, he could actually make a villain out of his friend. And I mean, that was kind of a recurring theme, like, you know, where Warlock was an ally who then turned into a major villain, bigger than Quincy. And then, of course, he was killed by the Malones, and then the Malones, which were a semi-ally, so to speak, were an even bigger enemy, leading to the deaths of, you know, Benny and Candace. So I feel like Vinny could be in a situation where his role as the Don could be questioned by Mama Rose, where it's like, you know what, ever since I put you in charge, this, and this happened under your watch. Now the feds are breathing down our neck even more than before. You're not fit to be the Don. So it's like, who's going to replace him? Could it be Mitch? It certainly won't be Sandy. So I feel like there could be a very, very, very interesting hierarchy for the top dog chain of command position within the Malone family. I feel like this spinoff could be very well done. Going back to something I mentioned in another video, I think it was the cast interview I did with Oscar, aka Vinny. I said, you know, the Malones, they might not like black people all that much, but that doesn't mean they won't work with them. Again, Judge Harrington, for example. We know that Derek had a checkered past, you know, the fact he has a lot of underground connections and whatnot. Who's to say him and the likes of Vinny didn't meet up in jail at one point, and, you know, one of them saved the other's life. And, you know, even though Derek's black, he's quote unquote one of the good ones. So with Derek being in jail, what if he gets released or something along those lines and he's in the series? Not to mention Keith Burke, Derek, and you know, Oscar, Teray, Vinny seem to have a very friendly buddy relationship in real life. I would like to see their dynamic on screen together. So guys, this is pretty much my pilot, if you will, for Malone spinoff. You know, I talk about certain things that were unanswered in the finale but could lead into what happens in the spinoff. I mean, what kind of genre would you place this in? You know, I feel like there could be some comedic aspect to it. It can't be fully serious all the time. There have to be the zingers in there, and that's why I feel like Sandy could definitely get a main role in this show. I think Mitch, have him alive. Yes, like I said, I could see him being killed off after what he did in the finale, but at the same time, I feel like just a quick kill would rob us of seeing Brett's acting chops in terms of emotional when he finds out his friends are dead. Not to mention, you know, seeing Hannah again after both her kids are dead and everything and stuff like that. So overall, guys, this could be great. I feel like it could be great. Not to mention, you know, like I said, if Charles tries to contact Hannah, man, if Mitch, imagine if Mitch is there too. So, you know, I need to stop. I feel like I can go on for like another hour because there is a lot of potential. So this is my plea, if you will. I know a lot of people want the series to continue and whatnot, but I feel like a Malone spinoff is kind of the best way to do so. I think in terms of the haves and the have-nots where it left off, that could be quote-unquote like wrapped up or whatever within like a mini season of like 8 episodes or so or less. But when it comes to a show that could take the baton and then go another mile or two, like maybe 2 or 3 seasons, I think it could be the Malones, or at the very least have Malone characters pop up in the other shows on Viacom, but also have the spinoff to explain certain things where, hey, there are gaps in the story which can only be explained. It's like, wait, Vinny showing up on the Oval? Well, what happened after the events of the Haves and Have-Nots finale? You gotta watch the spinoff. Folks, I just gave you $1 million idea for free. Unless you want to add me on as a writer or a cast member. But there's the thing. I'm just saying. Yeah, there's things. So for the Malone cast, I only really mentioned Vinny, Mitch, and Sandy. To all the other actors within the Malone family, share this video. Tag Tyler Perry Studios. Tag Tyler Perry. Tag you all know the people, not me. So see if there's anything that could be done, at least for consideration. This is my sales pitch, and if it happens, I hope it does. I could say, yeah, I kind of did that. So, no, all jokes aside, I feel like, you know, the Malones, the fact that we got the badass Malones we did in the finale, we need to see more of that in future shows. So let me know your 2 cents. I know a lot of people would love to see a you know, continuation of the story with Charles. But with Candace dead, I don't think a Charles show would work. Not to mention, we already got a presidential show in the Oval. We don't need another one. So that's just my opinion. Let's talk about it in the comments section below. If you like this video, share it around. And yeah, we'll see what happens, folks. We'll see what happens.